Welcome back to another episode of the Breadwinner Energy Podcast. Today we are recording again outside and the birds are going a little crazy, so hopefully it's not too bad on the audio. But before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you guys we are now starting week 2 of the Rebirth Challenge. It is going so well. It is completely free, 30 days inside this challenge. We're going to be together for 4 weeks, breaking down your entire rebirth from the shadow work, the shadow alchemy, your initiation to literally rebirthing yourself. And we will end on July 28th with a free live masterclass. So if you are not yet in the Rebirth Challenge or signed up for the free masterclass, do that now down below. You'll get to join my free community. And there's so much happening in there. There's so much free things happening right now in there. So it's perfect to just jump in and get started. You can already binge last week's part of the Rebirth Challenge, Shadow Alchemy. And then you can join for this week's initiation and then next week's embodiment. And then we're going to talk about building a business around your rebirth. And then we'll have that live masterclass. We're also opening up spots in the Breadwinner Energy Academy, which is your full rebirth for your business. It's money, it's your magic, it's making impact, it's literally becoming a leader. And we just opened something called the expansion room. So when you go over to the Breadwinner Energy Academy website, it's linked below, you can see the different options to join. So you can join the regular program for just 222 a month or 2222 a year, and that includes the entire curriculum, self-paced curriculum, 2 live Q&A calls every month, the 24/7 access to community, guest experts, exclusive bonuses, and you get to be an affiliate if you choose and earn while you learn. But we've opened something called the expansion room. So it's everything included in the regular package, plus 2 additional calls a month. So 4 total, plus 2 monthly one-to-one audits for one-to-one feedback. And then you also get your own expansion portal with exclusive trainings for 555 a month. So you literally get double the calls, more one-to-one access, and an expansion portal. So that is open. Academy is open. We are enrolling until August 21st with the expansion room. Now, if we end up filling too many people in the expansion room, we'll have to close it until further notice because it has so much extra calls, and those calls are more small private room as well as more one-to-one access, more support. Then we will do that. So lock in your spot now. The link is down below. Inside Academy, this is where you're going to fully rebirth yourself. You're going to use your shadow work as your initiation, as opening up your purpose, your power, what you're here, what you're meant to do. Become fully soul and self-expressed. Be a category of one where no one can compare to you because of your story and who you are and the shadows that you're integrating into your business, as well as becoming a better coach and a better leader and building a business around your actual soul's calling and purpose. That is exactly what we're doing inside that program. So join now if you haven't yet. Sign up for the Rebirth Challenge as well as the free masterclass. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Today's episode is going to be something way different than I've ever done, but I think it's a really important episode because we're talking about spiritual psychosis. And if you are newer on your spiritual journey, this might be a new topic for you. This might be something you've never heard of. Maybe it's something you have heard of. Maybe it's even something you've been through. But it's an important conversation to have because when I went through spiritual psychosis last year, I didn't know. Let's just say that. when I was in it, I had no idea I was in it, obviously. Um, and I think it's a really important part of your journey. And I think that it's initiation, really, is what I believe it is. And I know other people that also believe it's initiation. But I also know it's important to talk about so that you can recognize the signs so that you can also get yourself out of it if you happen to fall into spiritual psychosis. And I think now more than ever, it's really easy to fall into spiritual psychosis because of the internet and how many resources we have online and access to tarot readers and like on TikTok and spiritual leaders and gurus and whatever. I think it's really easy to fall into these spaces. So, last year, when I was going through my own cycle of whatever I was going through with my business and burning it down and the legal stuff, I fell into spiritual psychosis. And I think part of it was number one, was because I was grasping onto anything for control in order to feel better. So a lot of disassociating to feel better during that period because I was so out of control. But I also think the other piece was initiation for this now awakening and rebirth of myself. And because I was going to go through this awakening, right? I had to go through the spiritual psychosis first. And I think there's layers to awakenings. And usually with spiritual awakenings, they're like layers, right? So it's like maybe in the beginning, it's more of like you become more aware of reality, you become more aware of the matrix, you become more aware of the systems in place that are put against us. Like that's part of it, right? Or like then you have like these layers of like, okay, you're starting to believe more spiritual things and you're starting to believe in like see angel numbers, right? Like that's like the first part of awakenings that's like, okay, it's kind of like cute, right? And like fun and freeing. And that's a lot of times where spiritual psychosis will come in because it like feels like euphoria, right? It feels like really good and like everything's like so great and magical and it's all happening. It's like this really deep belief in the magic, but you're not grounded to reality whatsoever, and you're not taking action in reality whatsoever. And I think people get misconfused, like they get confused around the matrix and like leaving the matrix but not being grounded in reality, and that nuance right there is like the disconnect where people become so disconnected from reality they literally are like floating right in the sky, like everything is a sign, everything is happening for me. Like that is a really good way to know that you could be in spiritual psychosis. And I'm going to break down more in this episode, like what I experienced, what could be spiritual psychosis, even things that I didn't experience specifically. But that is then like this piece of this initiation into, okay, now you believe in the spiritual realm. Now you see the spiritual realm. Now you understand the spiritual realm. Like you're open to belief, but then you go through the rebirth after that. So I honestly think this is just part of this awakening and initiation into the next level of your spiritual awakening. And so for me, my first spiritual awakening was in 2019 because I was going through a divorce, and then 2020 because of COVID. And those spiritual awakenings were awareness. They were like more of like awareness of the spiritual world and awareness of like creating your own reality. Like that's really when that awoken to me and I became more aware, but it wasn't, there was no like actual rebirth. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, like I believe that. Um, and it wasn't until 2024 that was when I went through like spiritual psychosis, and then 2025 where I'm like in a full like on like rebirth. And everyone's looks different, right? Like everyone's experience here looks different. But what I do know is that the journey of awakening, there is this death rebirth cycle. There is this like there's an awakening that is not cute and fun at all, and oh my God, the signs and everything's aligning like that to me means you're either possibly in psychosis or there's some psychosis at play here. And I'm not saying that like angel numbers and signs don't exist or aren't part of it. They absolutely are. But what I am saying is that when it's all good, all fun, all the time, happy, head in the sky, head in the clouds, everything's aligning, like that vibe without like being truly grounded or going through that like during the spiritual awakening process you go into the void. Like you lose so much. And in the void, there's this purging that happens. Like you lose relationships, friendships, relationships with family, maybe romantic partners. Like everything that is not aligned to your next highest timeline leaves. And that process is excruciating. And then when you're also in the void, there's so much lack of clarity and knowing what the next steps are, and the path is like so unclear. That part is excruciating. And so when you get into that part of your spiritual awakening, you have to be able to be grounded in some way, shape, or form. So I truly believe that before you go into that portal process, like deeply, that you possibly go through psychosis to like prepare you. Like that's what I believe. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's how it felt for me in my journey. So in that journey of like this lack of clarity, right? Like lack of being grounded because everything is like being ripped and stripped from you. You have to be able to ground yourself in the unknown. And if you don't go through these processes before this, right, then you're not going to be able to ground yourself in the unknown. And that's when you're like still floating. And so sometimes sometimes spiritual psychosis can actually just look like a nervous system shutdown. Like, and then you think that's a divine awakening, right? And the thing is, there's nuance. Like parts of it could be a nervous system shutdown that then sparks a divine awakening, right? It could be pieces. But how you'll really know it's spiritual psychosis is like you'll probably be in deep disassociation and you're not grounded in reality whatsoever. Um, so you're bypassing like reality, or maybe you're bypassing actual responsibilities and you're just like kind of sitting around waiting for things to happen. This was me. What what I would look for if you are wondering if you're in spiritual psychosis is like extreme paranoia. I went through this last year where I thought like everyone hated me. Um, and paranoia can look different for different people. So I've heard of people being like, I got downloads that I should like run in the street butt naked. I got downloads that I should like leave the country immediately or something bad will happen. Or I got a download that like aliens are going to kill my whole family. Like not even being extreme at all. Those are like things that I've heard during people's spiritual psychosis. So it's like if the downloads and the messages or the things that are coming through are extremes, are rooted in paranoia, or are, again, lacking reality and responsibility, that's a really good sign that it's probably psychosis. So there's like a big disconnection from actually being grounded in like reality. Another one of being like disconnect of being grounded in reality is again, it's that euphoria feeling of like everything is good or everything is bad. So like that's a really good way to know too, is like the black and white. For me, I was like believing every single tarot reader was like speaking directly to me. They were giving me messages, and then I didn't have to do anything. This is so crazy to look back on. And like I didn't have to do anything, just sit and wait around for like this magic to happen to me. It was a wild experience looking back, or that like literally every single thing was either a message or a warning 24/7. So like every angel number, every like literally every sign, every animal, every thing I could find or think of was like definitely a sign. It was a message or it was a warning. And I was doing a lot of like waiting around for destiny to like take over and not taking any action. I was in deep like paralysis. Like couldn't, I felt like I couldn't do anything. Like I felt like I just couldn't take action. It was very strange in that moment. I was literally just waiting for like my life to change. Um, Maybe you're in deep isolation. Now, this is a tricky one because during a spiritual awakening, during being in the void, there is a little bit of hermit mode or isolation as you're ascending. So you have to be careful with the isolation because if you're isolating out of paranoia or you're isolating out of like spirits or talking to your aliens are going to kidnap you, right? That's very different. Maybe you have like miss your like fear of like missing out on signs or like I'm missing the message. I'm not understanding the assignment. And like there's like deep rooted fear in that. That could be part of psychosis or like fantasizing over soul contracts and ignoring real life or like fantasizing over again like the euphoria, the like all the good, and again we're just like ignoring real life, we're ignoring real responsibilities. Maybe you're being obsessive, so obsessive journaling, obsessive rituals, obsessive divination, or like really obsessive in trying to like believe your way into changing your life without doing anything. So there's like actual no tangible real results. Again, it's not grounded in reality. This can also too look like panic attacks, insomnia, big mood swings, and you think they're downloads, or the downloads are very they're creating some kind of, if the downloads are creating anxiety and fear and they don't feel good, like there's like this it will feel very weird in the moment. Now, the thing about the psychosis part is, and why I think it's really important to find a spiritual mentor or a spiritual person who's been through this as like a person you're around, or like being in spiritual groups is really important during this time because if you're in psychosis, you might not actually know you're in psychosis, right? So if you don't have anyone to speak to, if you don't have anyone to be around during the process to open up about what you're experiencing during the process, you can easily fall into psychosis and not know it and be there for quite some time. So, like for me, during my awakening last year, my psychosis episode, essentially, I didn't have like my group, my people, my community because I wasn't telling anyone, right? Where now this year, now that I've like gotten out of it, grounded myself in like reality, and I have the group, I was like, wow, I really wish I would have had, support or a mentor or a group back then. So here's some reasons actually why this happens. Number one could honestly just be like a collapse of your nervous system. So you could have hypervigilance and burnout, and then that goes into disassociation. Like disassociation could just be the scientific part of what's happening. It could be also unprocessed trauma, awakening triggers to all your unhealed shit. And it also could be just cognitive dissonance, right? So you can't hold the vision and your current reality all at once. And so you go into this disassociation part of it. I truly believe it's an initiation. I believe it's an initiation, like I said earlier, because it has to ground you and prepare you for what's coming. But I also think too that you're then going to go through a spiritual ego death. And I honestly think that the ego death is like I don't know, like the next phase or like a soon after phase. And that ego death is brutal. Ego death is the hardest one because ego death will force you to strip away all the fake safety, the fake feel goods. So if your entire safety has been rooted in materials and money and the material world, and you believe that in order to be safe, feel safe, in any way, shape, or form, it comes through money and material, which was part of mine, that will be stripped from you to prove, to show you, to teach you how you can actually be grounded and rooted in safety without money. Now, obviously, there's this logic part of your brain that's going to be like, no, I literally need money to survive. And that's not at all what I'm saying. For me, it was overindulgence. I was overindulging and believing that was creating safety. And so that had to be stripped away. I was obviously still making enough money to pay bills, but it was tight and it was scary. And I had to learn how you don't need the best home, you don't need the best car, you don't need overindulgence, right? Like, and that ego death is really important, especially if you're here to make a lot of money, because you have to learn that lesson now before you learn that, like, before you make, right, millions of dollars. Like, that's really important. So I truly believe that this is initiating you before your spiritual ego death to prepare you so that you're regrounded in reality. You're not floating in the skies. And you're also in this place of like being ready for the ego death. Ego death tells me also, too, you're going to ascend faster after. But I literally fought and clawed my way through my ego death. Like I did not surrender to that shit at all. And the faster you can surrender to your ego death, the better, because it is going to be ultimately what quantum leaps you. But you also, this is part of like the shadow work alchemy that we talk about is like it's really important to understand your own shadows and what you're clinging to for safety and security or false senses of safety and security, because that's going to be part of your ego death. Your ego death is going to be whatever your ego perceives as safe. And you have to know what that is. So for me, a big one was money, but that's not everyone's, right? So you have to know what that is for you. So, what happens is your shadow drags you through the underworld so that you can start to lead from your truth and not illusion. That's why another part of this is like the initiation part. It's like you have to go through the dark to know what the light is. So, what I will tell you is that leaders are actually forged in the void. Like this, when you're in the void and you go through the ego death, this is what will then put you out on the other side to ex like really ascend to like quantum leap to your next level. But there's a process to it. And if you ignore the process, fight the process, don't actually go through and learn the lessons of the process, you just stay there longer. Right. So, what to do if you're actually in spiritual psychosis or you feel like you just came out of it? Number one is stop looking for outside validation. So, outside tarot readings, like literally pause and take a break from anything that will further the psychosis, right? So, if you're on TikTok, let's say for instance, and you're following readers, tarot readers, and every message you feel like is for you, let's pause that for a while, right? Um, I even paused any like my own tarot, like pulling my own tarot cards during that period. And my therapist at the time had me pause a lot of anything that was rooted in like the feel goods or like the overindulgence of like feeling good, or like again, it's like looking outside for what are all the signs, like stop looking for signs. That was kind of the thing, is like if you were to see angels numbers, you can acknowledge it, but not thinking like, oh my God, every single thing in is a sign, right? Um, I did a lot of body work as well, like somatic body work, and also like grounding, literally grounding myself in the earth, moving, exercising, eating better, and then also therapy and somatic healing, and then focusing on like real life actions. So you can be spiritual and in belief, but you also need to do something about that belief. So you actually need to take action on your beliefs. So again, finding your community, finding a coach, finding a mentor who can help you through the spiritual process while also taking action. So if every single day it's like you're going out on a walk and you're going to the park and you're going shopping and you're going out for lunch and you're going here and you're going there and you're like, I'm in belief it's going to happen. And then you post on Instagram and there's like, I just know it's going to magically happen. And all day, every day, you're like out and about spending money and like believing that magically your business is going to grow. That is psychosis. That is not rooted in reality. Reality is I have those deep rooted beliefs and I balance like my own time away from business. And I also do the things required to build and grow a business. And setting boundaries. Like it's really important to set boundaries with your own obsessions and spiritual obsessions and then start using discernment. Now, this is tricky because you have to know like, is this guidance or is it a trauma loop? So if you have a lot of trauma, it's really important, number one, to seek therapy for whatever that is, and or do shadow work, because you have to know this is trauma. This is just like a loop that continues to play out. This is what I keep leaning into because it's easy and comfortable. It's a cycle, or this is actual guidance, right? And there's going to be a difference between that. I just want to say that this journey, like spiritual awakening journey, is crazy. It is. It's literally insane. It's messy. It's like the craziest experience ever, but also will crack you open to like bigger, better things, which is like exciting. But I want you to know in the moment, if you're experiencing any of this, always, my DMs are open on Instagram. You can always come over there. But if not, join the academy. It's a perfect place to be, where we mix grounded spirituality and shadow work with embodiment and building businesses that are grounded and rooted in truth. And if you're in this space, it's a great place to be in our community so that you are surrounded by other people who have been through spiritual awakenings, who are spiritual, who are psychic, who are just newer to their spiritual awakening and shadow work, who are more advanced in those areas. And you also have obviously me, and I can help ground you in these spaces or help you understand like where you're at in your spiritual journey. And if you're in the ego death void, just know that I see you. I know it's hard. It will be worth it. Surrender, surrender, surrender. As always, thank you guys so much.